So on this one, how many logs are we going to have in our answer? 2. The top was x cubed, so you can bring the 3 down. Log base 2 of x. X minus 3 was on the bottom, so minus log base 2 of x minus 3. Did you guys get that one? Let's go the other way. So I'm going to give you this part after it's been all broken up, and we're going to try to put it back together. So my final answer can only have one logarithm. Anything that was positive is going to be multiplied together on top. Anything with a negative will go on the bottom. So I am going to need a fraction here. Is the x on the numerator or denominator? What about the y? Yeah, it was a minus log base 4y, so that's on the bottom. Plus log base 4 of z. Since that's a positive, it goes on top. So it's log base 4 of xz over y. B. Alright. What's this 4 going to do? So it's an r to the 4th minus 5 log base b of s. Let's see. So we're only going to have a log once. 1/3 log base a of x. That would make x to the 1/3. Plus 2/3 log base a of y. So where does that go? You could put a cube root, yeah, either way. So it's going to go with the top. Minus, so this is on the bottom, xy. Now when you get to the end, you should always check to see if you can simplify. This one I would probably go either way with it. If you wrote it in radical form, you might see why it was broken apart this way, because you don't leave radicals in the denominator. Written like this is not as obvious, but if I told you to go ahead and reduce anything, you could. If you have x's on both the top and bottom, what do you do with their exponents? Subtract. Where would these end up? Do I have more on the top or the bottom? Yeah, so if I told you to do that, this is a 1 minus 1/3, so that would be an x to the 2/3 on the bottom. Y the 2/3 on top and y on the bottom, what would that leave me with? Y the 1/3 on the bottom. And that would just cancel everything on the top. So I could ask you to go ahead and simplify things once you condensed it. And that's just going back to properties of exponents. Alright, can you guys try a couple? I'm just going to give you 2. Go ahead and condense these 2. These 3 logs are all positive, so that's all going on top, multiplied together. So x times 9 would be 9x times the x squared plus 1 minus, so divided by the 5. If you wanted, you could distribute the 9x, but you do not have to. You can leave your answer like that. Second one, these are both positive, so it's just multiply together. So this would be u to the third and v to the fourth. Is that okay? All right, last couple of these. On the first one. If we condense this, what is it going to look like? What if I told you to simplify, since you have x's on both the top and the bottom? Square root is what kind of power? 1/2. So will it end on top or bottom? Okay, so 3 minus 1/2? 2.5. You could put 5/2. You could write this as x to the negative 5/2, however you want. But that would be our final answer. B is just more of the same, so let's go ahead and just finish this one up. We've got log base 4 x squared minus 1. Does that go on top or bottom? And then my denominator would be x plus 1 to the 5th. Any questions using these properties? Yes.
We should simplify that too.
We could, really. What could you do with x squared minus 1?
Break it apart.
Break it up. That's the difference of squares. It would factor into x plus 1, x minus 1. What happens then?
Subtract.
Yeah, you can cancel one of your x plus 1s, so you get x minus 1 over x plus 1 to the 4th. So when you're condensing, sometimes there is some simplifying that can go along with it. Anything else? Last example today. So I am giving you that log base 10 of 7 is 0.8451. Using that fact, I want you to evaluate each of these logarithms. Now, because I told you to use that fact, if you just put log base 10 of 49 in your calculator and write down an answer, I would not give you any credit. You have to show me that you're using the information I gave you. I told you what log base 10 of 7 was. So is there any way to rewrite log base 10 of 49 to get a log base 10 of 7? How? Okay. What happens with that square? Goes in front. So this is 2 times log base 10 of 7. But I know log base 2 of 7, I told you what that value was. So we just used our properties to get them. Alright. B. Log base 10 of 70. how could I rewrite that? Okay. If you have the log of things being multiplied, what do? Add them together. So log base 10 of 7 plus log base 10 of 10. Log base 10 of 7 I gave you. We know what log base 10 of 10 is. 1. 10 to the first is equal to 10. So we evaluated this just using our graph. Any questions over there? So that is the end of today's lesson. Do you want to talk what's going to be on your quiz tomorrow? So section 4.1 was talking about inverses. So make sure you can find an inverse. Okay, so for instance, if I told you this was your function, and I wanted you to find the inverse of it, what would you do? Change your fx to y. Then what? Now what? Solve for y. So I'm going to multiply by my denominator. So I get 3x minus xy. I have y in more than one spot, so what do I need to do? Put them on the same side. Put all your y's on the same side. So I get 3x equals y plus xy. Then what could you do? Factor out a y. Divide. Final step, instead of y, you have to use the inverse notation. So f inverse of x is 3x over 1 plus x. Okay, you found the inverse. What if I asked for domains and ranges of both? What's the domain of the original function? X can't be 3, so you would write negative infinity to 3 union 3 to infinity. And the domain of the function is always equal to the range of the inverse. Okay? Looking at the inverse. What's its domain? Negative 1. So negative infinity to negative 1. Union negative 1 to infinity, and that is the same as the range in the original function. Those two go together. Okay, so in section 1 we talked about, it had to be a one-to-one function to have an inverse. What does it mean to be one-to-one? Right. To be a function, x doesn't repeat. To be one-to-one, y doesn't repeat. We talked about, in a graph, that's passing the horizontal line test. You know how to find inverses. That was really the main part of section 1. Section 2 was all about the exponentials. So you guys know how to graph exponentials? So you remember making your t-chart, plug in -1, 0, and 1 for your x. Do I need to work through one of those, or do you remember that part? We also started solving equations. So if I gave you something like 3, or actually, let's not do that. Let's do 9 to the 2x minus 1 equals 27 to the x plus 4. What would you do there? Common base. What would you take them both to? So 9 is 3 squared. 27 is 3 to the third. What do you do with your exponents? So 3 to the, first you have to go ahead and distribute that through. Then you can set your exponents equal. Solve and you get x to be 14. Okay, so graphing and solving those exponentials. Interest was in there as well. Remember, I would give you the formula, you just have to be able to plug into it. The A equals P e to the RT. The only time you use that one is if I say continuous, otherwise you're using just your regular compounding formula. And then section 3 is what we are doing right now with the logs, so you should be able to graph the logs. Which remember, we just changed them to exponential and graphed that. What we did today, be able to expand and condense your logs. And then the equations with logs. So if I gave you something like log base 5 of x plus 3 equals 2, how would you solve that? Change to exponential. So 5 squared equals x plus 3. 5 squared is 25. Subtract your 3, so you get x to be 22. Remember, in a log, both the base and the argument have to be positive. Okay, so that's like the stuff you did for today. I didn't do a whole lot of review. I just kind of told you the topics in each section. Is there anything you need extra review over? You know, there are lots of variations on these log equations. There's also the ones where you had to essentially use your properties to solve, like, I don't remember if this was one that was actually on your homework last night. If I said x equals log base 4 of the cube root of 16, how would you figure that out? 2 options, really. Give me one. You could change to exponential. You guys, I picked this one because you struggled a bit writing those as powers. The cube root is what power?
2. 4 to the 2 thirds.
So break it down. 16 is 4 squared. And so you get your x to be 2 thirds. So be able, you know, if I give you a radical, make sure you can put that in fraction form and deal with your exponent. Any questions? Okay. Then let's give you guys time to do homework. That is not the assignment I want you to do.